Welcome back to another episode of the MacRumors Show. My name is Dan. We have Hartley here as usual and a special guest who happens to be the co-host of one of his own podcasts called Dark Mode, which you should definitely check out. We've had him on the show before. Luke Miani, everybody, is back for another go-around. How's it going, man? What's up? How's life?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I'm currently in the midst of a big old crunch because I'm going on a month-long trip slash making several videos. Yeah, I'm gonna be away for a month, so I'm basically trying to do a month's worth of work in 2 weeks. So yeah, I'm doing good.
So thank you so much for coming on. Did not know that when we asked you to do this. But are you where are you going? You going anywhere fun? Is it for work or just for like a vacation?
It's actually both. I'm going to too many places, really. I'm going to Portugal, Spain, Greece, Romania, uh, Czechoslovakia, I think, Austria, and Germany.
Okay, so yeah, you're hitting up all the bucket list places. That's going to be
Yeah,
sweet.
basically. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm working on
Well,
I'm going to do some stuff for my car channel. I'm doing some tech stuff. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time.
nice. Well, speaking of tech, let's just jump right into why we brought you in. The Apple Watch expert, which all three of us are Apple Watch experts. He says sarcastically. So we do have some news though, because this year I thought was going to be a huge year for the Apple Watch. Like it's the Apple Watch 10. It's going to have the X as the name, just like the iPhone 10 potentially. And now we were aggregating all of the rumors for this, and it kind of seems like there's fewer upgrades than we were expecting, which kind of bums me out. So Hartley is our resident, know-it-all. He's got all the info. So we'll start with you. Oh, he shook his head. Yes, he agrees.
Yeah,
so we'll start with you, Hartley. Why is it that we're expecting less than what we were anticipating? I was expecting a huge redesign. Why are we not getting that anymore?
So we've been hearing about an Apple Watch redesign for years at this point, and some sort of significant overhaul, because ultimately the Apple Watch has pretty much had the same design all the way through, with that sort of with the curved front glass and the curved edges, and obviously the same band connection mechanism. We've had some slight improvements over the years. So with the Series 4, we had a slight redesign. It got a bit thinner. And then with the Series 7, the bezels have been reduced and it got a little bit more curvy. But basically, I think it's fair to say the design's been pretty consistent. So we've been waiting for something big. It looked like this would be the year when maybe the band connection would change, when maybe we would be getting a thinner casing and a little bit more of a radical redesign. But according to some CAD renders that came out very recently, it now looks like that isn't the case. So maybe that is being held off for another year. But I don't really know how I feel about all of this, because it feels like we've been hearing about an Apple Watch redesign for so long at this point. And if it's not this year, does that mean that it's next year? Or does that mean that maybe this is just way off the mark and maybe this isn't happening at all? So I don't know what you guys think about that.
I've
Luke?
definitely been bummed out by these recent updates because I was really excited for the Apple Watch X or 10. I think having a redesign, we've heard about new band mechanisms, like I was super stoked for this because I got the Apple Watch Ultra. I'm a sheep, if there's a big new thing, I'm gonna get it. At the very least though, I didn't get the Apple Watch Ultra 2. I'm not that much of a tech simp. I'm not going to spend another $800 just to tap my fingers, right?
Which I always forget about, by the way. So you're not missing out on. I constantly forget about this.
It doesn't change the game very much. So I was like, all right, well, that's fine. We'll hold off on that. But I was thinking, because I've now been on the Apple Watch Ultra for coming up on 2 years. It's very big. I love the battery life, but it is very big. So I was like, okay, if this year is a big redesign for the regular Apple Watch, I'll go back and try that out, because I only ever had one regular Apple Watch. I have not been a big Apple Watch guy. I didn't even buy in until the Series 5, and then I kept that until the Ultra came out. So I was like, I would be excited to go back with a new, updated, and different Apple Watch. But now that apparently seems to maybe not be the case, it's like, I don't know. I feel like the Apple Watch, like we make fun of the iPhone for being incremental, but the Apple Watch has been incredibly incremental. Like we're lucky to get slightly rounded corners or a slightly larger display, and that's basically the extent of the design changes. So I mean, the current CADs that you guys posted about on June 26th over on MacRumors, to me, I'm like looking at that, it looks identical. I really don't see what, like, I feel like they keep kicking this redesign down the road.
So
Yeah.
the key things with these renders and what that reveals, it is a retooled casing. So it doesn't look like a retooled casing. So you don't really actually need to go and look at these images, because if you know what a current Apple Watch looks like, it looks the same, but the dimensions are slightly different. So the thing that's weird about these is they're thicker than the current Apple Watch. So we've heard for months at this point, if not years, about Apple working on thinner Apple Watches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually about, I think, 1 millimeter thicker.
That's
So
funny because they're trying to make everything else thin.
but I think I have a theory about this. And I think that what has happened is the Apple Watch Ultra has been way more popular than Apple expected. And I don't know about you guys, but I see the Apple Watch Ultra out and about so much. It seems to be the default option for tech enthusiasts anyway, or anyone that is seeing the Apple Watch a little bit differently to maybe like a dress watch they have. The Ultra is what they go for in the vast majority of cases, even though it's actually dramatically more expensive than the standard Series 9. And I think that Apple has maybe had a little bit of a shift of approach here, and they're thinking, actually, maybe we don't need to make this thinner. Maybe what we actually need to do is give the Apple Watch longer battery life. Maybe it's bigger display sizes that our users want.
I agree. I think that's very true. I think the surprising thing is that when the Apple Watch Ultra came out, everyone was expecting it to be more expensive. Like I remember audibly gasping when it was $799. And I think that Apple, this is my theory, right? Because Apple had tried in the early days of the Apple Watch to do luxury or premium versions. They had, well, obviously there was the gold one that was, famously not very popular. Then they did the ceramic ones. Then they had titanium ones. And none of those really caught on because like you're not getting any functionality. So with the Apple Watch Ultra, it was less expensive than the titanium Apple Watch that came before it, but it had, it's a dive watch. It has a bigger display. It has better battery life. It has different bands. It's like, it's actually a really good value. And I think Apple underpriced it because they didn't really know if people were going to want to spend $800 on an Apple Watch. But then clearly, to your point, people do. They want more battery life. They want a bigger screen. So maybe they say, hey, screw it. Bigger batteries, bigger screens. Let's do it.
Yeah, the non-tech enthusiasts have been, reaching out to me, friends and family, being like, "Hey, I'm interested in the Apple Watch Ultra. What can you tell me about it?" And I'm like, "Well, if you were ever in dire need of more battery life, I mean, and if you don't mind a much larger watch, you're gonna love it." And people have purchased it, and they have loved it. And that's not just for the sake of podcast talk. Like, legitimately, I can name 2 people off the top of my head in the last month who have reached out about that and then have gotten a bigger Ultra, Apple Watch Ultra and love it. So it's funny because I said earlier, like everybody or Apple's trying to make everything thinner. We were talking about that with, the iPad, obviously, and then the iPhone potentially being even thinner in the next year. And now with the Apple Watch, something that you would think maybe people would want it to be pretty thin and discreet on your wrist, they're going in the opposite direction, which is kind of funny to me. I do have a question for both of you. We talked about how we're all bummed about the design not being radically different or not being a huge redesign for the Series 10 here. What could they do aside from making it round or thinner? Like, honestly, I think we talked about this before, Hartley, where I said, like, I don't know what that would look like to be dramatically different unless it was round. And so I just don't know that Apple's ever going to do that. So, I mean, I guess we are kind of just stuck in this like never ending cycle of going thin, thick, larger display, smaller display. Like, what do you guys think they can do?
Well, I think you've got a couple options. I mean, to your point, obviously, there's only so much you can do with a little like rectangle-y thing that's on your wrist. I don't think Apple wants to go round. I think that would be too much of a seismic shift from this like now 10-year history of Apple Watches all having that same display ratio. But I think, I mean, the big one for me was that rumor from a couple of years ago where I think John Prosser was on that, Gurman was on that, the squarer sides, the iPhone 12 design. That was like, everyone was so certain that that was going to happen. And then the Series 7 came out and it was nothing like that. So I still think that's really the only thing you can do to the design is just make it a little bit more squared off, which I still think would make sense. Like that's what they've done to the iPhone. That's what they've done to the iPad. They're like getting rid of the older rounded iPad design. Even the MacBooks, like everything kind of has that. So I could see it making sense for the Apple Watch. The only issue would be comfort, because obviously the rounded design, like if you bend your wrist like this, you wouldn't want like a harder edge cutting into it. But the Apple Watch Ultra is kind of like squared off on top. So maybe they could do something like that. I think that there's something that could be done. And I think it probably, I guess the question is, does it happen this year or next year, if at all? Because I think the thing that people are forgetting about is that the original Apple Watch launched in March of 2015. So there's not really like a clean anniversary, because September of this year would be earlier. September of next year is going to be later than 10 years. And, you know, we're on the Series 9 right now. So X10, that kind of makes sense. I have no idea.
I have a suspicion that the redesign is basically dropped now. I think there's been a lot of speculation online in the past couple of days that actually this is an interim thing, this new set of casings. But if Apple is designing new casings here, that will be for successive generations. It's been exactly the same. The Series 7 redesigned casing lasted through the 7, 8, and 9.
And that was an interim as well.
The 4, 5, and 6. So this realistically will be the same again. I think the other thing that's really interesting here is the sizes. So this came from Ming-Chi Kuo, who has said that effectively the Apple Watch currently is arranged with 4 casing sizes. You have a 41, a 45, and the Apple Watch Ultra, which is effectively a 47 millimeter casing. So that refers to the vertical height of that casing. And this has got slightly bigger over the years. So when the Apple Watch first launched, it was 38 and 42, and then it got a little bit bigger again with the Series 4. But the bands have continued to be compatible. What looks like is going to happen now is the smaller size, which is the one that I actually like and have always had. The currently, I guess it's the 41 millimeter. That is going to be discontinued. The 45 millimeter will remain, but then sitting above the Apple Watch Ultra is a new 49 millimeter casing. So instead of the Ultra sitting at the top in terms of size, it will now sit in the middle. So it's going to be a little bit like that iPhone 10 situation, where the iPhone 10 was physically smaller than the iPhone 8 Plus, but bigger than the iPhone 8. So that's where the Ultra will sit now, which is interesting because it could have a much longer battery life. And I think that also suggests that we'll get band compatibility on the 45 millimeter Apple Watch. And also those bands will continue to work with the Ultra as they do currently, but there will need to be a new band size for the 49 millimeter. You following me, Dan?
Brain.
You look like you're struggling with that one.
I mean,
Dan is really crunching the numbers.
I'm that meme of Zach Galifianakis. All the numbers are coming through. I don't know. I don't know if I care at this point. Like, it's just
the thing that bothers me is when you say, you know, like the 45 millimeter bands are compatible with the Apple Watch Ultra. The thing that is bothering me is that a lot of the bands are compatible, but the fitment is a little off.
The lugs,
and that's not just between the Ultra, right? Yeah, exactly. Like I have some like cheap random Amazon band for a 45 millimeter Apple Watch, and it's too small. It doesn't fit the curvature of the case. And then the same thing happens on I think Series 4 to 7. Some of those bands look a little weird. Like it's too confusing at this point. I feel like
That's why
I was
like,
excited for the new design with new
Right.
magnetic bands. I was like, if you're gonna change it, don't stop with this. Like, oh, it's very slightly different, where you might get a band and it might look slightly wrong. Like, do a new design, start over, give us something to like build a new ecosystem with. I don't know, man.
I think I'm at the point where I don't care anymore what it looks like if it's going to remain this design. If it
True.
doesn't go round, I don't know that I care anymore. It's going to be slightly different. I'll get used to it after a couple days, and it is what it is. I'll only care about at this point just like maybe the display size, the software, and then of course the health features, which we can transition to in just a second. But I do want to ask you guys, and I'm sure I've asked this before to Hartley, but we'll do it again. Do you think there is ever a world where Apple does keep one like this design and they do one round? Do you think they'll ever go there? Because we've talked about how I don't think they'd ever do, X, Y, and Z with the iPhone or the iPad or whatever the case may be. And then they end up doing it. Like, case in point with customizing icon colors and customizing the home screen. Like, we probably can dig back in conversations, whatever the case may be, and we could definitively say that we were like wrong, because we would say, oh no, they're not going to do that, and then they eventually do. So I don't know if there's a clamoring for a round watch like I would want, but what do you guys think?
Personally, I would love one, but I don't think it's ever going to happen, because I think that when you are reading text and you need to display readable objects, that does not work with a round display.
Sure.
We just like the idea of a round display because we think of a round analog watch, but an analog watch is round for a different reason. So it's a different need, and I think it so goes against Apple's idea of UI and even UX design as a whole that I don't think they will ever do it, even if I would love it. I just don't think it makes sense.
I agree. I mean, when you look at Watch OS, I think that's the biggest obstacle, right? I mean, most of the watch faces, like the ones that I have complications in. This is like the worst angle. I have complications in all four corners. So like you'd lose a lot of that real estate. And then the bigger thing is like just notifications. Like all the notifications are square and the buttons at the bottom are squared off. Like, I don't think a round watch would be able to display half of the information that you can see on the current Apple Watch, and it would require completely redesigning Watch OS, and it would be basically two different operating systems at that point.
The only thing that makes me think maybe it could happen, now I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
Is think about how small the display area was on the smallest original Apple Watch. And it was pretty much still just as functional as WatchOS is now on the Apple Watch Ultra. So if we had a round Apple Watch that was this new casing size, which is 49 millimeters,
right,
maybe it could just run WatchOS.
So this is where I was going to go with. This is where I was going to say, think about way back when you got your first Apple Watch. How much text were you truly reading on that, to the point where you're like, all right, I got the gist of it. I saw a line, and now I'm going to take my phone out because I realized I'm going to answer this and I want to see what the rest of the message is. Even with this massive Ultra, I still do that. I am not sitting here reading long form, articles and I'm checking out what it is. Obviously if it's can fit the whole text, that's great. But if it can't, and if I deem it important enough from what I've already, read, I'm probably going to take out my phone anyways. So, and plus, look at all the other manufacturers that have already done this. Google with the Pixel Watch, and Samsung, obviously, being probably one of the more popular versions with its Galaxy Watch. I've used both of those. I don't really see an issue with the whole text part. You will need to redesign it. I'm sure Apple's teams of hardware and software engineers will be just fine at figuring that out and making it highly functional. So I personally don't see why they couldn't do it. I would welcome it. I think it just looks better. And I think it solves a lot of, I'm just being selfish. It would be personally what I would want, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there.
Here's one idea.
Yeah.
So my thought is, what if it's like a middle ground? Because I feel like
a squircle.
Most people, like obviously it's a little rounded now, but what if they made it like more rounded, but it's not a full on 360-degree circle. Would that make you happy?
I mean, a lot of these watch faces are already round. Look at the one that you just held up. They're already round in nature. Like that could easily be in a round. So I feel like Apple's trying to do it without trying to do it. And I don't know, just man up and do it. I just feel like you could make a round
What about
watch.
my complications? How will I know the temperature and the time in two different time zones?
But they're curved. Like in yours, isn't it curved in the corners? So just curve it around that part of the display. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, but you'd have to make these rounded complications fit. You'd have to make it like
a little bit bigger.
I think the watch would become so huge because the problem is, okay, if you take like, let's say the Apple Watch Ultra, right? This is I guess it's like a 2-to-1 aspect ratio rectangle-y squircly thing. If you wanted to make this round, it would either have the same footprint, but you're losing real estate on the screen, or you'd have to basically make it bigger to make it round. And
you'd have to put a bezel on it.
You'd have to put some pretty big old chunkers on it. And I think that would be pushing the limits. The Apple Watch Ultra is the biggest size that I think you can realistically get away with for a smartwatch. I would not go any bigger.
Well, that's actually what I was going to ask you guys, because you're both Apple Watch Ultra users. So if there is now going, and I assume a lot of the reason why you have an Apple Watch Ultra is maybe not because you're going to use some of those sort of adventure features.
I'm not going diving, Hartley.
Yeah.
You can just say it.
Yeah. So
I'm not offended.
If it's about display size and if it's about battery life, if the 49mm Series 10 offers a larger display size, which it will, and longer battery life, will that draw you away from the Ultra?
Yes.
Sure.
Really?
I'm a really bad Apple Watch user though. And I want to know if you're listening and you've got a moment to comment or whatever. I would love to hear how you guys use your watch on a daily basis, and I'll ask you, but for me, I'm literally on this is the worst way to show the camera. I'm literally on this one where you can see, your health info. For the 1 to 2 times I try to make it to the gym, the only complication I regularly tap on is the logging the workout one. And that is it. And then everything else is for quick time, see where I'm at in the goals. And then whenever a text comes through, notification and a phone call. And that's really it. And by the way, to unlock my Mac, I think that's one of the greatest underrated features of all time. Just being able to unlock using your Apple Watch. That's it. I don't use it for anything else. So the Ultra for me is for the bigger display and the battery life. And I like the orange accents. That's about it. So I can be convinced into anything that can still do the same stuff, especially if it's round. I could certainly be convinced in that. I don't care if it has worse battery life. I just like the way that looks better.
I think that's a very good point, though, because I would bet that a large amount of people fall into that similar camp. The things that I use the Apple Watch Ultra for is the same stuff. Notifications. I get a couple complications. I really like being able to see the weather. That's one of my favorite things. Temperature, high and low. Boom. Love that. Really, aside from that, that's what I use my watch face for. I do activity tracking. That's a huge one. That one I think is bigger than Apple ever thought it was going to be, like the workout training, which also is one of my biggest pain points because it's very frustrating. Sleep tracking is another one that I use a lot. I mean, I guess it's more so that I reflect on how well or poorly I slept to understand why I feel a certain way at that day. If I wake up and I'm like, dang, that was a rough night, and then I see that, I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough. This is going to be one of those days. But outside of that, battery life and big screen. That's why I bought the Apple Watch Ultra. So if there were to be a regular Apple Watch that was smaller, thinner, but with good battery life, absolutely you could get me on board easy.
Hartley?
I mean, personally, I'm going to just be depressed come September because I use the 41mm. So I'm not going to be happy with whatever is going to come out of that situation.
But are you using your watch for more than the order? And Luke, you did say that you were willing to bet a large population of those listening and just users in general would be kind of in the same camp. I will say, if you go back and look in the comments, the people who do comment on this kind of stuff are usually not in that camp, and they'll tell us like, "Oh, I use it for diving," and actually what the Ultra is for. But you have to take the silent majority that most likely you are correct. It's probably going to be, kind of where we're at. So, Hartley, are you in the same camp as us, or are you diving that we just don't know about? Are you hiking in the woods?
No, I'm sorry to disappoint you on that one, Dan.
I'm disappointed. I thought you were a diver.
I kind of go in phases with my Apple Watch, where I find that I really embrace closing my rings and even using some apps on it, and even with stuff like, I don't know, parcel tracking or something. And I just sort of decide that that's the device that I want to do that from. Or I'll think, you know what, I'm going to try messaging from the Apple Watch instead of taking out my phone. And I will go through these sort of phases where I really try and use it for anything it can do that my phone can do as well. And I quite like the idea of that because it's a bit more of a minimal experience. It means that if I can do it fast enough, I can kind of stay in the moment a bit more and kind of not get sucked into my phone. So I quite like it from that perspective, but it never lasts. So yeah, I'm in the same boat. I can't work out how I feel about the Apple Watch as a whole. I like the idea of a more minimal device, but I just like my iPhone too much. And as a result, the watch kind of finds itself in this weird place where it's delivering notifications, but actually I'm turning a lot of notifications off because if what I want is a more minimal experience, I don't want to be bombarded with notifications. And I don't necessarily want to be harassed about my rings either. So then what is the watch
There's
for?
Still time.
So
there's still time.
I think I need to ask. I think I need to know from you guys, and I feel like I need to do this as well. I think I need to turn on, because I have this, if you get an Apple Watch Ultra, it automatically comes with cellular as an option. I think I need to just pay for the plan. It's not even that expensive anymore. I think you can get them for like $5 to $10 a month, depending on your carrier. I think I just need to do that and activate the cellular and then start leaving my phone at home. Like, we go for family walks, and I don't want to carry my phone with me. But I can still get like the tracking for your outdoor walk. And like, if I'm going by myself, I'll put on some headphones, and, especially at the gym, I don't want my phone in the pocket, in my pocket. Slides out if you're doing some kind of exercise. So I think I just need to do that. And then maybe then I'll start using the watch a little bit more. Cause then it's like, well, I don't have my phone on me. So now if I want to know, a specific thing, I'll have to start going into the app specifically to that. So I don't know. Do you guys feel the same way, or do you think it's not going to change much? Or do you already use a cellular?
I also don't use the cellular. I've also had that same debate, but I don't really want to leave my phone behind because, my phone's also my car key, so I have to bring it there. And then if I leave it in the car, then my car doesn't lock. So it's like, it's not really practical for me to not have my phone at all. So therefore, I don't really care about that feature per se. I think that the irony is, if you, like you said, the silent majority, if you asked every single Apple Watch user and you did a poll, I think you would find that a very significant majority, maybe 80 or 90% even, would be on the same page of not really using the Apple Watch per se. Like, it's not like, oh boy, I can't wait to use my Apple Watch, and I'm sitting around like, in some movie from the 2000s, like beep, boop, boop. I think most people are using the Apple Watch as an accessory or an assistant. It's for setting up your complications. It's for checking your time, for tracking your workouts. It's a fitness tracker, I think, first and foremost, for a lot of people. So I think it's a really interesting product because the Apple Watch is something where Apple can sell you on features that you're probably not going to use all that much, and will sell people the Apple Watch Ultra that have no earthly business using an Apple Watch Ultra. Dan, I think you and I have basically outed ourselves as being complete and total frauds. Like, I take it off to go in the pool because I have a leather band. So I keep it on. Total phony.
Oh, I keep it on. I don't care. But I'm also using the trail, which gets kind of gross if you get it wet, but whatever.
Yeah. And by the way, that trail loop is super duper fragile. Like, mine started disintegrating almost immediately.
Oh, mine's been fine. I wear it every single day. I am way too lazy to change the band out.
What's the other one? The Alpine loop.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the
I don't
one.
use that.
That's the
I
one
don't
that I
use that
had.
one. Okay.
I swear they need to do a recall on that thing because I have stopped using it because after 6 or 7 months it was grimy. You're not supposed to put it in the wash. Like they say that on the thing. It's like don't put it in the wash. So you have to like scrub it in the sink or whatever. And it starts fraying. The like loops, the stitching is pretty weak. They'll come out if you like, you have one loop that you're always putting it in and out of. That loop
Yeah.
starts to get frayed. It's a complete disaster. But like if you look at the Apple Watch Ultra, I think the craziest thing is that it sold people an $800 smartwatch, and in many cases the only thing that sold them was battery life and look different. That's it.
That and I'm with you, and I'm willing to bet all the people that I know that have an Apple Watch Ultra do not use it. Like we feel bad for, calling ourselves frauds, but like I know
Mhm.
there are way more of you out there. And Hartley's like the realest one because he didn't even go for it. He's like, I'm just not even gonna
Yeah.
get it. Like I'm just not doing it.
He knows what he
So,
needs and he bought what he
yeah.
needs, not like the rest of us. I would bet 98% of Apple Watch Ultra users are just like us.
Just like us, one of us.
Probably.
That might
And actually,
that might
if you
hurt.
think about it, the iPhone is another example of that. Apple gets away with, for the iPhone and the Apple Watch exclusively, having people pay more for features that they don't care about. Like people will buy the iPhone 15 Pro Max and literally not even know what that extra zoom camera is. They'll literally just say big screen, pretty. That's it.
This would be a good man on the street video. Just go out there and be like, "Are you a pro or are you a fraud? What kind of phone do you have? If you have a pro phone, what pro features are you using?" And you will be right. I'm guessing most people do not use the cameras are the biggest thing. That's it. Go ahead,
If
Harley.
you go to those people and you survey them and you say, "Do you shoot in Pro RAW?" They're gonna say, "What the hell is that? What are you talking about?"
Oh yeah. Yep. Go ahead, Hartley.
So
What did you have to say?
here's a conundrum for you. If you think people are going to be tempted by the new 49mm because it's got a longer battery life and it's got a bigger display, but people also like shiny new things, and the new Ultra 3 has a black color option,
Ooh.
I don't think the tech community is going to know how to handle that. Do I want
Gotta
the
buy
black
both.
color option, or do I want the 49mm?
That
Boy,
is
you're
tough.
right. I would struggle with that too. Ooh,
Mm.
black with orange accents. Oh man, that's just right up my alley.
But what
That
if
is
you're getting,
pretty fire.
65 hours of battery life?
Yeah, it's also
Honestly,
hilarious that
I will take battery life every day of the week. I would take the 65 hours, 100%.
well, you sleep with yours, so you have realistic reasons for that. I don't. I just put mine on the charger every night. So like there's really no point. It doesn't even charge all the way at this point because it has that feature where it like can know like what you're going to use it for. So it's like I don't even need to charge all the way. So half the
So
time
you're
I'm
even
home with
more
like
of a
20%.
fraud.
I'm a huge fraud. It's fine.
So all you
I
use
go
is the
down to
display size,
1%.
but you don't even really
I
use
go
the
down to
display size.
1%.
Shut up, Hartley.
Every
We don't
day.
need to just hammer this home even more.
You just
We've
like how it
already
looks.
determined it.
That's
I
all it's
do like
about.
how it looks. And oftentimes, like when I travel, I really don't charge it all the time. So I'll make sure it gets up to 100. And then I kind of just, like if it's a 1 or 2 day trip, I don't really want to bring my charger for that. So I just bring my phone charger and that's it. It is what it is.
Underrated feature of the Apple Watch Ultra right there. Absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
If I go
Using-
away for a day trip or a weekend trip or just like a 1 night or a 2 night thing, just don't even bring the charger, right? Because every other thing that I have except for these stupid AirPods is on USB-C. So I only need to bring a USB-C, and it's such a pain in the ass when you have to carry that Apple Watch charger or like one of those combo devices. That's a very good point. That's worth $800 right there.
Or in the worst case, you could just bring the cable only and keep it in your bag. But if you need it, you can charge it with your phone. So that's
You see, the way I
also
rationalize
nice.
that is because I have AirPods Pro that are still Lightning. So I never use Lightning, but I will always use the Apple Watch charger, and therefore the Apple Watch charger can charge 2 devices. So that's my thinking.
Got to get your money up. Because instead of being practical and doing that, what you need to do is spend another $250 on AirPods and then another $800 on the Apple Watch so that you can avoid doing that.
Here's the thing. So I'm preparing for Vision Pro, and I just bought a new Magic Keyboard and Magic Trackpad. For that, it is still Lightning, so I cannot escape Lightning. I still can't, because in my setup, it's too essential. And this is the thing, is even if it's the thing that actually stops me from buying the USB-C AirPods Pro, because I actually would do that, but now I'm going to have to carry a Lightning cable anyway. So what's the point?
Luke, you just held up the Magic Mouse. Are you a fellow Magic Mouse user? Shamefully,
I have been a Magic Mouse user for more than 10 years, and I'm not going anywhere. And I'll tell you what, I will defend that to my grave, because the multi-touch for Final Cut Pro is unparalleled. You cannot do better than this. So there's no debate. There's no discussion. I am a Magic Mouse user, end of story.
So am I. I'm ashamed by it, but you nailed the reason why I use it. But like ultimately I'm, suffering from carpal tunnel, and like, my wrists are all messed up. There's no ergonomics to it at all. The charging is terrible, all of the reasons, but I can't escape it.
You need to get one of those little 3D printed accessories that you can slot into that improves the ergonomics.
Yeah, I've seen those. I don't have a 3D printer. I need to get one, because there's a lot of things that could like fix some aspects of my life if I just like 3D printed it.
Yeah, get one for the Vision Pro, double solo loop setup. There's lots you can do with your Apple devices.
Yeah, or they could just make them better.
So I've just noticed I actually have a like shiny spot on my right wrist. It's probably not going to show up on camera, but I literally have a shiny spot from where that part of my wrist is dragging around my desk for the past 20 years, it feels like.
Oh no.
It's yeah, we pay the price, but I also reap the rewards, because you just can't beat it. I'm not someone who likes to use a trackpad on a desktop. So the Magic Mouse is literally the only thing that exists. It's like people that will use a studio display because they're like, well, I want 5K. It's like, yeah, okay, there you go. You have one option on the market, and that's it.
Yeah. Retina quality.
Are both of you guys going to use the Magic Mouse with Vision Pro with Vision OS 2?
No.
Yes.
Maybe.
Why or why not?
Dan?
Okay, sorry. I was waiting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so no, I mean I use the Magic Mouse already, so I don't want to I just want to use it with my. But
do you think it will make Vision OS better for you?
Oh, I guess that's true. Well, no. So here's what I would only use it for is when I'm using it for my Mac, and then I want to bounce between the other things. You can't do that with the Magic Mouse, at least currently. But when you have the Magic Trackpad, you could. And so that's the only time I'm ever using a keyboard and mouse is when I'm using it with my Mac. And then I want to go over to Vision Pro apps and stuff. That's the only time you'll find me using that. So that's it.
I agree.
But like as a standalone, I probably won't ever do that. I'll just be pinching around.
Yeah, I'm going to have to try it first because I agree with you, Dan. I think the best use case is connected to a Mac and you can ping around and go into other stuff. I'm not that educated. I don't know how it's going to look and work. Like, how do you have a mouse in 3D space that's only used to being on a 2D space? So I don't know if that's been out there. I might just be misinformed. But the other thing that I could see the mouse being useful for is Safari, because I hate using Safari on Vision Pro. It is so bad because the buttons are all so small and the eye tracking isn't precise enough. And I'm always like, I'll sit there and I'm like, click on that button. No, that one. I'm like trying to look harder, like as if that's possible. It's very, very frustrating. So that is somewhere where I could see myself using the mouse. But overall, like if I was navigating through regular Vision OS, it's way easier to just be like pinch, pinch, pinch.
Anyways, we got a little sidetracked there. Back to the Apple Watch Series 10 for a minute. Let's just talk about the features, because that's really the next thing that people are going to look at as well. We kind of forget about like, oh, here's how we use our watch on a day to day, but like there are health features that people also want and need. Some of them have been removed. What new ones are we going to get with the Series 10, or what's the likelihood of us getting maybe like blood pressure monitoring or sleep apnea detection? Hartley, do you think that's still potentially on its way?
We haven't heard anything about them not being on their way, so I'm going to assume that this is still on the table. And the key thing about the blood pressure monitoring that I think makes that so plausible is it's only actually hypertension detection. So you're not going to get specific systolic and diastolic readings here. It will just tell you, as perhaps it already tells you about an irregular heart rhythm, it will tell you if you're at risk of hypertension, which then you would follow up with your own doctor. And sleep apnea as well, which obviously leans into those existing features that can, I would say monitor blood oxygen, but let's go with sleep. But I can still monitor my blood oxygen. You guys can't.
Oh, that's right.
I can.
Yeah. Forgot about that. Way to rub it in.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I'm gonna cry.
Seriously. Would you guys be interested in any? I still have the blood oxygen thing on my watch. Why?
Well,
Why
I think
when was the last time I've
if you
updated
bought
this
at
thing?
launch, it probably did. They disable that feature on existing watches?
No. So it's still
Okay,
available
so that's
on ones from
because you
that
bought it
time.
before the ban.
Yeah,
happened,
yeah.
So that would
Yeah.
be
That makes sense.
That means that your watch is more valuable. You could flip that.
That's true.
Do you remember when that was a thing? People were paying like hundreds of dollars over MSRP when they thought that the watch was going to get banned.
Yeah,
So
and that's
goofy.
wild. Yeah, it's just people are
So goofy.
insane,
All of a sudden,
insane
people
behavior.
like the craziest thing about that sorry to sidetrack us yet again, but the craziest thing about that whole story was when all the news about the ban was coming out, and everyone was like, "This place still has Series 9s in stock. This one has Series 9," and I was like, are we all gonna just gloss over the fact that 2 months ago everyone's review of that watch was, you don't need to buy it, it's fine, but just keep your existing one. But as soon as they talk about getting banned, everyone's like, there's still inventory at Best Buy, go. It was crazy.
They could have just gotten a Series 8 too. It would have been. I just go look for a used one. You didn't need to get a Series 9.
You could still buy a Series 8 right now if you want that feature.
Yeah, that's a good point. So with all of those changes, is there anything else that you're looking forward to coming in? Maybe some new health tracking stuff? Or are we just kind of just going to be real depressed about the Series 10 at this point?
I think that one.
I don't think you'll be depressed when it comes out, because I think the longer battery life, the larger display size, there probably will be some new band style, especially if there is a whole new band size that is required. And then if there are 2 new health features, that'll be a bigger upgrade than probably since maybe the Series 7.
Okay.
So it's okay. I mean, it's not going to excite me personally, but that's just because I'm going to be really sad about losing that 41 millimeter. But I think if I was an Apple Watch Ultra user, such as yourself, Dan, that just basically has it for the look and the display size and the battery life, then I would be quite excited for this new 49 millimeter
and the
model.
integration with my phone. I get, the notifications.
Well, they
and
all
Yeah,
have
but that's the
that.
same.
The phone
it's the
call.
same whatever size you
I'm
get.
just saying, you're making it seem like I'm like, ooh, shiny big orange thing on my wrist. Oh, and it just stays on forever. Like, okay, Luke, just maybe a little
Maybe
bit.
a
little bit.
Yeah.
At this point, I've got such a bad farmer's tan from my watch that I have to put something on. Yeah, otherwise it's just like darker skin, very pale skin.
Yeah.
Like I have
you gotta
to put
have a
something on.
watch.
Yeah,
just
even
to
if this thing
cover
was
up that
dead.
Stripe.
All right. Well, does anyone have anything else they want to add about the Series 10? Or do we want to talk about why Luke's AirPods Max are called ShitPods Max? Because that's what I'm seeing here on Riverside.
Oh.
You've named your... I can see the name of it.
It's accurate, okay? I don't think there has been an Apple product in recent memory that I've had such a love-hate relationship with. I despise my AirPods Max, but I can't get rid of them because so the first one is the mesh on the top collapsed instantaneously. So I've had 4
Yes.
years of a sore head. They're
Me
too
too.
heavy. They always disconnect. The amount of times that I'm working on something, I'll be on a plane, okay? I'm on an aeroplane sitting on the runway and I'm like watching something on my iPad. I pull out my phone, I open up Twitter, a video with the volume off, and a video auto plays in the background, and the AirPods are like, I'm going to auto switch and I'm going to play your stuff out loud on the iPad, and it's going to be really, really annoying for you to switch it back. I have ended up disabling all of the features that supposedly make AirPods Max better than any other pair of Bluetooth headphones. I feel swindled. I feel duped. I feel bamboozled. I hate these things with a burning passion.
And you've forgotten something there that's quite important to mention.
Yeah.
Oh, the bra, the bikini. Yeah. That one doesn't
But
even
also-
bother me that much.
I hate it.
But I have to ask then, why are you guys also, by the way, Hartley, I've just also noticed that you are wearing a pair. I mean, I've noticed earlier, but I didn't get a chance to bring it up.
Yeah.
Why are you wearing those right now?
So I left my AirPods Pro in my friend's backpack at the weekend. So
well, those are gone.
I'm currently I'm all in on AirPods Max. Currently, I'm very grateful to have a pair.
So
But,
that was my question. Why are you guys still wearing them if you don't like them so much? And have you tried the Sonos headphones? Because they're amazing.
I mean, I probably will
have
get
not.
those next because I just can't deal with this canopy. What I bought for mine, and I can't take them off right now, is I bought one of those cheap Amazon little silicone covers for the headband, just to try and give some support to this canopy, because as Luke says, it does just collapse instantly. So you have absolutely no support on the top of your head. It is the most uncomfortable thing. And then that's on top of your head being slowly squeezed like a vice between these two ear cups.
Just realized mine are
If
also
I'm on
right
an
here.
airplane and I watch like 1 or 2 movies back to back, I'm talking going California to the East Coast, which I do pretty often. That's not that long to wear a pair of headphones, but by the time I land and I take them off, it feels as if I've been released from a medieval torture device. These are catastrophically bad. But to your question, Dan, I wear them. I use them because I spent $500 and I don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on another pair of headphones. I use them because they're AirPods and spatial audio is phenomenal, and they sound really good. And for me, it's like an Apple Watch thing. I don't buy every Apple Watch because for me it feels unnecessary or wasteful. I buy new phones and laps and Macs all the time because it's my job, but AirPods aren't my job, and I don't want to spend more. I don't want to spend. I mean, I guess at this point it's been 4 years, 4.5
Yeah,
years.
you've gotten your
3.5
money's worth,
years.
kind of, at this point.
Yeah. Well, I've gotten something for the last 3.5 years.
Yeah, you've gotten AirPods Max for that. So okay, well, I like that this portion is the AirPods Max portion. What would you like to see, Luke, on the next version? Which, by the way, will not happen most likely, and you'll only have a USB-C port, which I'm guessing is on your list. But
Yeah, that's a big one. To be honest, though, the Lightning doesn't bother me as much because the battery life is so freaking good on these things. And that's one of the other things that I like. I charge them maybe every 3 weeks, something like that. I don't use them a crazy amount, but the battery life is great. Like, I never have to bring a charger when I go on a trip. And I have a Magic Mouse, so I have to have Lightning anyway. So that's fine.
True.
But I would like USB-C. That's a big one. Really what they need to do is make it about 50% lighter, fix the canopy, and stop with the stupid software things. I hate that. Okay, if you have a pair of AirPods Pro, and you pull one of them out and it pauses it, to me, that makes sense. But the lifting an ear cup thing and pausing, that does not make sense because you always have to readjust them. It's an over-the-ear pair of headphones. No matter how uncomfortable they are, you're going to adjust them. and it always is pausing the music. And heaven forbid you try to do one of these things. I'm not even going to do it. You know, you like lift it up like that, gone, disconnects like that in 0.01 of a second. They're disconnected, and then you have to like put them back on and reconnect them. They work so bad with the Mac. Oh my God. If they're annoying with the iPhone, but they're so frustrating with the Mac because every time it switches, when you go into Control Center and you click on Bluetooth, it still shows them as being connected, even if audio isn't playing through them. So as far as I'm aware, what I've had to do every single time that happens is either go to the settings and select them in audio output, which is idiotic, or go to the Bluetooth menu, disconnect them, and then click them again to reconnect them. It is the single most embarrassing bit of user interface that Apple has ever put out, and they put a charging port on the bottom of a mouse. So like that tells you how frustrated I am by AirPods Max.
I think the thing with AirPods Max that explains a lot of why they are the way they are is, I think, compared to most Apple products, I think this is a very rushed product. This is not a product that was in the works for 5 years, like the first AirPods. I think this product was developed and shipped within the space of maybe just over a year, because there is no way that this, and I'm holding up the smart case here, was ever thought to be a good solution for anything other than maybe in a single meeting once, and they had to come up with something to put it into a low power mode because we haven't developed a switch or a button on the headphones. So the only way you can put them into a low power mode state is to put this completely non-protective weird case on it that it's not even a case. It's just this sort of piece of fabric. It's just not a case.
And
Guys,
by the way,
I hate
whose
to tell you
idea
this, but
was
you
it?
just
Go
ahead.
Go on.
That's
Okay,
fine.
I was going to just say, whose idea was it to not have them fold up at all? Like, it's a case that makes them actually physically larger because you rotate the ear cups and they take up more space. Like, every single other pair of headphones folds up for a reason.
So the Sonos Ace is what I was going to say. It sounds like you guys just need those because they sound just as good. They have switching abilities with your home theater. They have spatial audio. They are, whatever percentage you said lighter, that's probably accurate because they don't use, a lot of premium materials on it, even though it's still very nice. They do not fold though, and I do kind of understand their reason, and I'm guessing this is probably what Apple probably did. The reason why they said that there's just too much mechanical issues that could go, that would be the first thing that would go wrong with those headphones at some point then, if you're constantly folding them. And they figured that they would rather just eat it a little bit with the case and have you just turn them inwards and just put them in the case. But the case is so much better and thinner, and just it is infinitely better than what Apple came up with. That you don't
need the case to turn them off.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Power button. Yeah, you just turn it off, and then you can, and you can't fold them up. But like the reasons behind it were like that's what usually in their testing would fail first.
Can you imagine if the iPad or the Mac came with just a piece of fabric like a cloth, and you have the only way you can turn that device off is just by like putting the cloth over the object, because that's all this is. It is not a case. It's just a piece of fabric with a magnet in, and that magnet turns it off. It is the most ridiculous thing that Apple has ever shipped. We talk about
guys,
like the charging
just got
port
my
on the bottom
new
of the Magic
iPhone
Mouse.
22. Time to turn it off. Okay, now my iPhone is in a low power mode. I put a piece of microfiber cloth over it. Now it's off.
That's
you
it.
look like
and
a
it doesn't
magician.
even protect it. It provides absolutely
No.
no protection at all.
That's part of why the canopy collapses so quickly, is because it's completely exposed, and like it's kind of like the handle that you hold it from. They asked way too much of that tiny piece of fabric.
Yeah,
you know what
that's
probably
the worst part of it actually is the canopy.
You know what the most hilarious part is to me though? Every single one of us agree that they sound incredible. And so that's the most important part of headphones. So all of these little gripes still outweigh the fact that they sound so good, but you're like, yeah, but I hate them. And it's just, it's fun.
The noise cancellation is great. The audio quality is great. They look nice and they feel nice in your hands.
but
Yeah.
not on your head.
But everything else, everything else
Yeah.
is a disaster. Oh, I also
Yeah.
quite like the digital crown as well. But
Yeah,
everything
digital
else is a
crown's great.
disaster.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Yeah,
that's enough.
you
That's,
know, you
that's
gotta-
enough crapping on them.
You gotta love them.
All right. That's
Maybe the
enough
third
hating
version,
on.
you know, maybe 8 years from now, we'll finally get what we want.
8
with
years
AirPods
from now
Max.
will be AirPods Max 2.
Well, we'll get the twos this year, but it's just gonna be USB-C instead of Lightning. So,
If that's actually the case,
Yeah.
I might have to ceremonially burn my AirPods and just like abandon them. Like I legitimately, if that's the only thing that they do, I'm not buying it. There's no way. I will buy a Sonos Ace instead.
yeah,
You could
So will I.
you
Not
could make an
happening.
incredible video though. Rage baiting, just super upset.
That's true.
I feel like you would be very passionate about it. But all right. Well, let us know in the comments what you think about the AirPods Max, the Series 10, and of course, go check out Luke Miani's YouTube channel. It's amazing. And also Dark Mode Podcast is really good as well. So thanks, Luke, man. I appreciate it. I'm sorry that we asked you during a super busy time. But we're very
Nah, you're
appreciative of
good.
coming on.
Always happy to make time for you guys.
Awesome, dude. Thank you.